Today we are continuing on with Greg Nuckols' 1 month free strength training program, focusing on the bench, the deadlift, and the squat. I am doing deadlift today. It is definitely different from anything that I've done before, and I will tell you what that will be here in just a second. I will also be sharing my thoughts on food and whether or not you should eat it. If you're prepping for a bodybuilding competition, then there's a strong argument that you probably shouldn't even eat it. But what I will really be talking about with food is how I've kind of gotten to a point in my life where I eat pretty much whatever I want. Now, I know I'm not the most impressive physique on the internet. Just kidding, yes I am. Because I'm the only channel that you watch, so you're not aware of any other physiques out there. Anyway, I have spent my last 5 or 6 years tinkering with food and trying to get to a comfortable place in my life, and I feel like I have accomplished that. So I will share with you how I have done that. And also some areas where I do want to improve a little bit, but we'll go over that. So today we'll be focusing on deadlift. So obviously I will be doing deadlift. I will also be doing RDLs, and I will be doing some rows. Now, the deadlifts, this is something that I have never tried before, but I will be doing 8 sets of 3 reps with 75% of my 1 rep max. Now, I would like to be able to tell you that I know enough about fitness to why this is a good thing to do so many sets with so few reps, but whatever, I'm just following the program. Greg Nuckols, if you're not familiar with him, at one point was a world record holder in powerlifting competitions. I don't know if he still has it or not. I don't follow it that closely. I just came across his program and got tired of plateauing with my lifts, so I figured I'd give what he recommends a shot. So I will be starting with the deadlifts, and then we'll be moving on. Well, a positive aspect of doing so many sets at low reps is rest times don't have to be very long. So, you may have watched my intro and thought to yourself when I said I eat whatever I want, big deal. That's what everybody does. Everybody eats what they want. And yeah, you're right. The big difference is I am around 15% body fat right now and not 25% or over like most of America is, because I live in America. So I managed to eat what I want while still being able to do the things that I want and mostly looking the way that I want. I mean, I do lift weights, so obviously I would like to have some bigger muscles, some more definition. And that would be the weakness of my current eating, is that I do still have a really hard time eating for a specific purpose, like cutting, for example. It's very hard for me, like it is for most people, to just go 2 weeks or something like that, eating 1,400 calories or whatever it is that you're trying to target. That's hard. My energy plummets, and I work outside. I have a somewhat physical job where I am moving around a lot, so it just gets really hard when I'm doing that. So the big difference, 6 years ago, when I ate whatever I want then, I was like most of America, which was if I wanted pizza, I would get Papa John's. If I wanted ice cream, I would go get ice cream. I would always have Oreos around the house, all that stuff that, is good, but not good for your health and for maintaining a certain body size. So the main thing that I've been able to shift over the last 5 or 6 years is what I want to eat. That's been the biggest difference. I don't want to eat Oreos and Papa John's and ice cream anymore. At least not at the rate that I was. I haven't had Papa John's in a really long time, but I'll have some Halo Top ice cream every now and then, but I do it in a way to where I'm not over consuming calories and I'm not desperate for it. It's just kind of a nice treat to have every now and then. Anytime I do feel like I want an Oreo or a donut or something, it's almost more out of a curiosity as opposed to a craving. It's just kind of like, wow, it's been so long since I've had something like that or that specific thing. I wonder what kind of effect it would have on my body, or I wonder what kind of explosion it would make in my mouth. Because it's weird. You know, I have had periods of time where I've gone 3 or 4 months where I'm literally just eating things that have 1 or 2 ingredients, and your taste buds really change in that period of time. But man, when you come back to something that is just that loaded with sugar and sweets, it's crazy. It's literally like an explosion in your mouth. And think whatever you want of that. But the cravings that I do tend to have now are more things like protein or fruits, or even just some substitutes that I have found for sweet treats that aren't nearly as bad for you. There's some things we get from Costco. We just call them fruit strips. I don't know if that's what they're called or not. But it's organic. But man, they hit the spot for a sweet tooth. You know, I can eat one in 2 or 3 bites, and then I'm pretty much good to go. Normally I do have 2 of them at a time, so I guess it is 5 or 6 bites. But it really does help with that sweet tooth. Obviously in the summertime it's a lot easier too if you can get fresh fruit, if you can afford fresh fruit. It really does help replace the sweet tooth. But it's difficult to get to that point because it's natural sugars as opposed to artificial sugars. And that leads me into my next point, which is one of the ways that I was able to change my cravings and the things that I want to eat, was I started learning about food. I'm definitely not a nutritionist, and I definitely wouldn't be able to explain the science behind foods or anything like that, but I've read enough to kind of internalize it. You know, that's typically what I do. I read it. I don't necessarily memorize it, but I kind of get a little bit of an understanding of it and then move on. But I started learning about it, and one thing that I learned was about bliss point. And the bliss point in food is what the companies do with research to find the perfect point of salty and sweet, for example, in food. So, you know, most people are aware now, but if you're not aware, almost everything has sugar in it. If you're going to a grocery store and you are in the middle aisles and not on the outer aisles, then, well, not outer aisles, but the outside of the store, you know what I mean, the outer shelves, whatever the freak they're called. But everything has sugar in it. Like, why does spaghetti sauce need to have sugar in it? It does. And it's because it's bliss point. You know, the companies spend millions and millions, or billions, I don't remember the number, but it's a lot. It's a lot more money than I have, on figuring out exactly what it is that hits that trigger in your mouth when you're eating that food. And you know, they do test studies. They'll bring people in and obviously have them try it and figure out what it's like. Oh yeah, that's the one that tastes good. Learning about that kind of made me angry. It kind of made me feel manipulated, and I think all of us, you know, that are common people, workers, just trying to figure out our way through life, have probably felt a feeling like that before, where it feels like people with big companies and a lot more money than us are kind of manipulating us, and they are in a sense. So another side effect that learning about that has had on me is a lot more empathy towards people, because I did used to be one of those kind of people that's like, well, look, if you're fat, just buckle down and get over it. And I still have a little bit of that mentality, but there are so many things that people don't understand about food and the way that we interact with it and the way that it interacts within your body. But the bliss point is a great example of that, because people can't figure out why they keep going back to foods that they don't want to eat anymore. Most people, I think everybody wants to be in shape. Everybody does. It's just hard to do, so not everybody does it. But getting that understanding of bliss point helped, it just kind of made me angry, and it helped motivate me to, in a way, it was kind of like a fuck you towards organizations. I'm going to get over this and do my own thing. Another big thing was learning more about sugar and how unbelievably bad it is for you, and realizing how crazy it is that we feed it to small children and it's so easily accessible to anyone that wants it. I almost feel like that it should be treated like alcohol, and in fact the body responds to it in a similar way as alcohol. The big difference is that alcohol will at least make you intoxicated, so you can at least kind of tell, if you're starting to get a little funky with it, but sugar doesn't even do that. And, we feed it to 2-year-olds or younger. But sugar is extremely addictive, and it's in everything. There have been studies, and I haven't read these studies personally, I have watched people talk about them, so take that as you will, but they say that sugar is more addictive than cocaine. So it's just crazy to me that it's just in everything, and there's no restrictions on it, or not more awareness brought to it. But it's also sneaky and harder to deal with because people can get worked up about alcohol because there's drunk driver deaths all the time, unfortunately, and obviously alcoholism can be an abusive thing in relationships, so it has more obvious effects on people. But sugar is just sneaky. It just is something that you eat for 20 to 50 years, and then all of a sudden, well, it's not all of a sudden, that's why it's so sneaky, but eventually, your arteries are clogged and your heart can't take it anymore, and then you get a stroke or you have a heart attack and you're dead. So it's just not something that gets brought to the forefront as much as some of these more obvious things like hard drugs or alcohol. So on top of a little bit of anger towards these corporations for almost manipulating me in a sense, that's kind of the way that I looked at it. I also just got scared. I didn't want to die too early. I have a wife and daughter that I care about a lot and I want to live for, and I want to live for as long as I can. I'm 6'4", 210 pounds, even though on camera I look like I'm 7'2", 330 pounds and jacked into oblivion, but camera just adds those kind of things. But my wife is 5'3". And statistically speaking, the bigger you are and the more male you happen to be, which is me, you're going to die before your partner does. So, that's something that scares me. I don't want to die before my wife, but I probably will. So I got really motivated to make the changes necessary to make sure that I'm here to support her and spend as much time with her as I can, because I don't know what happens after this. I don't know where I go or if I go anywhere after I die. And obviously I want to be a good dad and a strong dad that's able to play with kids. I had kind of older parents myself, and it's nice to be able to think that I will still be able to play sports with my kids or kid when they're old enough to do so. Another big factor for me was I just got tired of being skinny fat or fat. When I was younger, it's a lot easier, like everyone else, most of the time, to just be kind of skinny or skinny fat, and then you just get older and it's easier to put on weight. I'm 34 now, and I started easily putting on weight in my early 20s, and I was in a relationship with my current wife already for years and years, so it's easy to just kind of let yourself go, and I didn't want to do that. If you're ever able to step away from the things that you know are bad for you long enough to stay on the good things, then if you ever find yourself going back to those things, you realize what kind of toll that they take on you, especially if you're able to maintain a certain level of physical activity during that. But even if you don't, the times over the years where I have splurged on like Papa John's or something like that after I have been eating really well, it was almost like a hangover. In some instances, it literally was like a hangover. There was one night, probably 4 years ago, where I just went nuts on Papa John's. I ate it like I did when I was 18 years old, and I would have a sleepover drinking Mountain Dew all night long. But I think I had like 15 pieces. So I guess, what is that, like a pizza and a half or close to 2 pizzas? I was throwing up all night long after that. I remember contacting my family and was like, hey, did anyone else get like a bug or food poisoning or something like that? Literally no one else got sick that ate Papa John's. It was just me. We all experience it if you're old enough that you just can't eat the things that you ate when you were younger. But I do think it has a lot to do with the fact that, I was just eating clean and then I wasn't. And it took a toll on my body. Because there are plenty of people my age that can still just eat nothing but junk and they don't have those kind of results. So bad food is really something that your body has to adapt to and learn to tolerate. So if you're able to unadapt from that and then expose yourself to the bad foods again, then you're probably going to realize how bad it just makes you feel. And feeling something is really what makes long-term changes. You can read and study and do all that and have the logical or reasonable awareness that, hey, this is not good for you. And everybody knows that smoking or eating nothing but pizza and ice cream is bad for you, but there's so many people that do those sorts of things because the feeling of eating that is better than the feeling of trying to improve your life. And that's why I'm spending a lot of time talking about the things that made me feel something, because long-term change starts from within. There's a reason why there's so many stories out there of people completely turning their lives around when something tragic happens to them. They lose a loved one. And obviously it can go both ways. Sometimes that ruins people, but sometimes it toughens them and just turns them into absolute monsters in a positive way, because they've just been, that feeling is what's so powerful. That's what creates change. Small side note on that, I actually think that letting people hit their rock bottom is a good thing, but that's something for a different video maybe. So I do think it's really important, if you want to make long-term changes towards anything that's hard, you need to tie it to something emotionally meaningful to you. So again, if you're like me and you want to live long and healthy with your family, then let that fear of dying creep in a little bit. Start thinking about the fact, hey, if I don't turn my life around, I might be dead in my mid-40s and I'm going to miss out on all this time that I could be spending with my family. Death is such a powerful motivator that I think a lot of us don't spend enough time thinking about. It's a reality of life. It is going to happen to you someday. Science has not reached the point yet, if ever, where we can prevent that. So prepare for it. All right, I'm moving on to RDLs here. This is 3 sets of 8 reps. The first set, I'm going to be looking for an RPE of about an 8. I don't know what that is, so it might take a little bit to kind of play with it and figure it out. Well, turns out my instincts were pretty good on that. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make, specifically with weight loss and being fit, is attaching the outcome to a shallow-ish or superficial-ish, however you want to put it, experience. Now, maybe a little bit of a controversial take with that would be a wedding. How many people want to lose 20 plus pounds and look good for their wedding? And the reason why I call that kind of superficial and artificial is because it's not going to cost you anything if you manage to not accomplish the outcome. Really, the only thing is going to be when you look back on those pictures and be like, damn, I looked fat in that. And ironically enough, that's what I see when I look back on my wedding photos, because I got married before I started taking fitness seriously. So every time I look at that, I was like, damn, I was chubby. But anyway, there's nothing on the line with that. Your spouse or your fiance has already agreed to marry you at the size that you are now. So if you don't lose the weight, then it's not like you're going to lose the wedding. It's not like you're going to lose the fiance or anything like that. Now, maybe if you were in a situation where you really love someone and they're like, hey, you lose 30 pounds, I'm not going to stay with you anymore, that might be a lot more motivational to get something done. Now, on a side note of that, you might not be in a very good relationship if somebody's doing that, but hey, it's really important for people to be able to go do active things, and if their partner can't keep up with them, then, that's high enough on a priority list where they might drop you. Oh, my grip. I don't have the grip. Something that I find to be very sad and also super counterintuitive if you actually think about it for a second, but the fact that people let themselves go once they're already in a long-term relationship. Now, obviously a lot of that does have to do with age. Again, it's easier to be thin when you're 18 than it is when you're 34. But I also do think that people find it less important to look good when they're in an established relationship than if they are trying to attract somebody. Now, obviously it makes sense that from the perspective of when you are dating or trying to find somebody to date, the first impression that you make is a visual one, and ideally you want that visual impression to be a good one. ironically enough, physical attraction is both super important and also one of the more shallow things about a relationship, in my opinion. Physical attraction to your spouse or partner is important, but if you're with them long enough, then you reach a point where you're no longer physically attractive when you're 80 years old. So everyone knows it's not one of the most important things about a relationship, but my whole point to this being, people let themselves go far too early and don't take into consideration that they are with the person that they are supposed to care about more than anyone else in the world besides maybe their own kids. And they don't feel like that's important enough to maintain some level of fitness or attraction. A big motivator for me to want to eat better and look better was so that I can look better for my wife. And personally, it's just a good feeling when she thinks that I look good, and she tells me. I just find it weird that it's common in American society to put less effort into looking good when you're with the person that you love than you would if you were not with anybody. All right, I'm moving on to rows here. This is 4 sets of 10, and I will be doing dead rows as opposed to rows that are more focused on the back, to where you're only bringing the bar about down here. I just want to come off the ground with it, so it helps put that extra emphasis on the lower body. Because again, the whole point of this is to help strengthen the deadlift. And since this is 4 sets, I am looking at about an RPE of a 7 on my first set. Alright, that was higher than a 7, but I'm going to stick with it anyway. I'm pretty sure I can do 4 sets of that. So while I have gone off on quite a bit of tangents that might not seem like they're necessarily related to food and the reason why I've been able to make the changes that I have made, but they all, again, tie back into very important feelings for me. Things that I was highly motivated to either avoid or move towards. So I feel like I've learned enough about food to where I want to avoid it for health reasons. I've had enough bad experiences with bad food to pretty much always not want to feel that again. Again, we're human. We do have our times where we splurge, and I'm sure that's going to happen to me again, but the times where that happens just get further and further apart. So the things that I do crave are, just some grilled chicken, because I know that that's good for me. It's a high source of protein, low fat, depending on what kind of dieting you're doing at the time. And I'm pretty much always trying to do at least low fat, but if I'm eating higher fat, then lower in carbs. And instead of wanting cookies, I want fruit. And well, in fact, speaking of cookies, ironically enough, one of my favorite things to make is just 3 ingredients. Well, I guess it's technically more than 3 ingredients because it does include protein powder, and protein powder has more than 3 ingredients. But it is just oatmeal, bananas, and chocolate protein powder. And I just mix that up and put it into the shape of a cookie, and then I'll eat that. And those are really, really good to me. Now, if you eat a lot of sugary stuff, you might not find them very good. Another thing that I've found that's helped me a lot with my food is intermittent fasting. I can't believe I haven't brought it up to this point, but it's just something that I started playing with 5 years, 6 years ago now, and it's just a regular part of my diet or day now. I don't know if you can call it a diet if you do it every day, but I love the feeling of being able to let my stomach completely recover from eating, because you know how it is. If you eat too much food or something, you just kind of feel like you got the bubbly stomach, or things are just kind of moving around in there, and it's nice to just kind of let that settle itself. And then it also, if you like to pig out, because I definitely like to pig out, intermittent fasting is a great way to do that while still maintaining weight or even cutting weight. Because if you intermittent fast for 16 to 20 hours and you eat everything within a 4 to 6 hour period or whatever, then you're going to be able to just kind of eat as much as you want. It's really hard to overeat if you're eating good things. If you're eating a lot of chicken and vegetables and fruit, then it's going to be a lot harder to consume 5,000 calories in a 4 hour period. I also just felt better when I was intermittent fasting. Apparently there are people, like anything, where it doesn't work very well. My wife tried it and she didn't have great results with it. So that might not be something that works well for you. So you just kind of figure it out. You know, if someone likes to graze a lot, then it could be that 6 small meals a day approach works really, really well if that's you. I'm gonna have to call this grip day too. My grip is giving out. Gosh, it sucks. I do believe that if you want to make real changes and you want to do them on your own terms and not from some external source like a doctor saying, hey, if you don't stop smoking, you might be dead in 2 years, whatever it may be. You have to do some soul searching. And you have to play with it. I've played with a lot of different things over the years, and I've just kind of found a recipe of things that work for me, the things that I've already talked about throughout this video. You just have to find what works for you. Find something, the carrot and the stick, something that I'm going to refer to a lot if you decide to watch more of my videos, is find something that scares you, something that you want to run away from, and find something that is desirable and go towards that. Because sometimes it's just not enough to be scared, and sometimes it's just not enough to want something. So why not use 2 really good motivating factors to accomplish something? And unfortunately, the hardest part is just getting started and getting some momentum. If you do something for a year, the level of difficulty just goes down. It just becomes normal, and it probably isn't even going to take a year. It's just safe to assume that if you've been doing something for a year, then it's pretty easy at that point. That's also speaking from personal experience. There's a reason why you don't find basic multiplication hard anymore, like you did when you were in 1st or 2nd grade, whenever you were learning it. It's because you've been doing it for so freaking long that it's easy. And honestly, that same principle goes towards a lot of different things in life. And I think it goes towards food too. It's really easy to avoid something if you've been doing it for a year. It's just getting past the hurdle. It's just getting past those first few months, getting past the cravings. And again, understanding why you're having those cravings was a big part of what helped me make my changes. But I don't think I'm special. If I did it, you can do it. I do think that most people out there are capable of doing things that they think they aren't capable of. I guess I have more faith in people than a lot of people have faith in themselves. Another point I do want to touch on real quick with food is alternatives. I think alternatives are pretty dang important. I have talked about pizza multiple times throughout this, like in a way that I don't ever eat pizza, which is not true. I just have homemade pizza. And it actually tastes better to me now than when I do eat any other type of pizza. So that's a really nice benefit at this point. But it's also harder to do. It takes more time than just ordering pizza. But you can keep it healthier too. So is it good for you? No. But if I have a pizza craving once a month, once every other month, I can make some pizza and get it out of the way and just keep moving on. And that personally does tie in really, really well to intermittent fasting for me, because I know if I'm going to have pizza that night, I just won't eat. Or if I do, I'll make sure that I'm having a lot of low calorie protein, again, like chicken before that. So that way I'm not going crazy with calories. But again, you just got to play with it. And that is a lot of fun. If you just have a open mind to it and being like, hey, I know there's, you start with some faith and belief in yourself, saying, I know I can do it. I know that there's something out there that will work for me. And then just go have fun with it. Try different things. Try carnivore, try keto, try intermittent fasting. Anything that's going to help get you towards your goal. If you're not enjoying doing something, it's going to be a lot harder for you to stick with it. So might as well try and find a way to enjoy it. 8, ooh, 9. One more thing. If you don't have supportive people in your life, then try and find some supportive people. And if you don't have supportive people, then just probably stop hanging out with those people altogether if you can. Because what's the point of having a relationship with somebody if they don't even want to support you in trying to better yourself? That's my opinion anyway. But I am fortunate enough to have friends and family that do believe that I can do anything that I set my mind to. And that is an extremely underrated factor towards all this stuff that I've been discussing as well. It's so much easier to stick with something and do something if you are with like-minded people that are supportive and trying to do the same thing that you're doing. But let me be the first person to start. If you don't believe in yourself and that you can't stick with something long enough to get good results, then just borrow my belief in you, because I definitely believe that you can do it. So go do it. You got this. But thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around for as long as you have. I sincerely appreciate it. I'm having a lot of fun with these videos, but I do hope to grow this into something bigger, so I appreciate your contribution towards that. See ya!